It do is DOA back with another episode of putting shit together. Today, man, we gonna talk about these celestial events that's being overshadowed by all these psyops that's going on. Y'all know what's dominating the news cycle right now. You got the death of Charlie Kirk, so they say. You know what I'm saying? We probably cover that in another video, but this one is gonna be more so talking about how this is dominating the news cycle when you got some once in a lifetime celestial events happening. And I'll briefly just speak on it real quick. On the Charlie Kirk assassination, man. Just a lot of shit ain't adding up. A lot of shit ain't adding up, and certain shit is adding up. And what it's adding up to is on some sacrificial type, psyop type shit, man. We gonna do a deep dive into Erica Kirk on another video so y'all can see some of the connections between her, Donald Trump, and some trafficking allegations as far as the youngins go. Some of that underage trafficking type of investigations. But what I will say about the Charlie Kirk assassination, real briefly, is that they said the shooter was using a Mauser rifle, and they show you a video of him headed towards the event with the what appears to be the entire rifle stuck in his pants leg, which is causing him to walk with kind of a limp, not being able to bend that leg. But when they show you the video of him jumping off the top of the roof, you don't see the rifle. But they say that's because he broke the rifle down and stuck it in his backpack. But I told y'all, man, I know a thing or two about these weapons, and a Mauser rifle can't be broken apart that quickly on a rooftop. You pretty much need a vise. You need like a table vise to stick the stock into in order to get the barrel off of it. And especially, with it having um, a scope atop it, that would have been interesting. It's really no way he could have made the shot by putting the scope on when he arrived and putting the barrel on when he arrived at the event. So it would have had to have already been put together. That's number one. If we saying it, he the one that made the shot, but it's just no way he could have did that quick and jumped off that roof. Like you really need a vise to get those type of rifles, to get the barrel off of them. You could probably take the sight off of it, but not the barrel. And then they say when they found the Mauser later, it was fully assembled. So it was like, where did it go? He disassembled it, put it in the backpack, jumped off a roof, took a walk, then reassembled it and dropped it in the bushes. It just don't make sense, man. But as I said, we'll cover that in another video. But what I do want to talk about, I don't know if y'all saw my other video on the 3-eye Atlas comet, so they say, and the anomaly that it is, man. Like I told y'all, I had the surface seemed to be composed of almost pure nickel with no iron, which is an indicator that it is a built object, not just a comet, which is when nickel is present in a normal comet, it's accompanied by iron. But in this case, this has pretty much no iron, and the emissions is not just water vapor like normal ice burn off. It's got large amounts of CO2 and what's coming off of it. But then on September 12th, they identified another object in the sky, which they're calling Swan R2, which is about 100 times the size of the 3-eye Atlas, and it's headed what seems to be to the same type of location, which they're both gonna pass by the Earth to some distance, and then they're going towards the sun. Well, they have deemed that these two objects almost look like they're gonna meet behind the sun. But if you know a little bit about astronomy, um, and astrologers, basically, that they can't use their telescopes while pointed towards the sun. So basically, these objects are going to go out of sight of our telescopes and our capability to view them. They're going to go behind the sun. We're not really sure, based on the trajectory right now, if they're going to collide, if they're going to meet up somehow or whatever. But this second object is huge, and the tail is super long. They say the tail is so long that the tail itself could reach from the sun to the earth. That's how long it is. We see right here in this article, it's basically the length of 5 full moons. That's how long the tail is to our visibility, 5 full moons. So, yeah, they're saying that this object, not like the 3-eye atlas, is in some type of orbit around the sun. It has a huge, like a much bigger orbit than the rest of the planets in our solar system. So they say it swings around by Earth every 22,554 years. That's how long it takes to complete its revolution around the sun. Now, this is interesting because, amongst other things, there's a lot of evidence, and I'll probably play a video for y'all towards the end of this video so you can get a little bit more scientific explanation. I am no expert on this subject itself, but they're saying that there's a lot of things that they can see that's also leading them to believe that this is not a normal comet. For one, it's 60 miles in the diameter. The diameter of it appears to be about 60 miles, which is super huge. That's number one. And the way that it glows, you would normally expect a comet to have a green glow to it, but they have recorded that it's had a violet glow, red glow, which kind of indicates that it has some different type of gases coming off of it. And they just recently, in the course of me setting this video up and then actually shooting it, they've actually seen that there's something else trailing it, that's trailing kind of close to it. And it appears to be super metallic and kind of reflective. So, not sure what that is either. Then they're saying that the Swan R2 comet appears to have some type of force field around it, a force field that's being able to block some of the debris. It's being able to keep debris from making contact with it, which is interesting. And then on top of it, I think it's got 10,000, maybe 10,000 gigawatts power output coming off of it, which is the amount of power of like 2 black holes colliding, or as much power as the entire human race is consuming here on Earth at this time. So it's got like several nuclear power plants worth of power that is present on its surface, which, I mean, it's crazy just to even think of. But I got my own pretty much premonitions of what this might be. Now, for a lot of y'all that don't understand, conventional religion will tell you a story about creation, but Genesis was actually derived from the Elohim, which is a book by the ancient Sumerians, apparently, or the ancient Sumerians book is based off of this other book that this story comes from, pretty much Babylonian. And it says that our planet Earth used to be a planet called Tiamat, which was pretty much all water planet, and that at some point there was another planet with a extremely large revolution around our sun that ended up coming close, and one of the satellites, the moons from this other planet, which a lot of y'all might have heard, like Nibiru is what they call this fictional planet, but one of the moons from Nibiru actually struck the planet Tiamat and broke it into pieces, which formed the Earth as we currently know it. So parts were knocked off, and that formed the asteroid belt and some of the other heavenly bodies, the debris from our initial planet Tiamat. And then the remaining block, which is what we now call Earth, was affected in such a way that it had a chasm on it, of course, having like a divot from the pieces that were knocked off. So then that caused the water to rush in and cover, with, of course, the help and assistance of gravity and the spinning of our planet. It like smoothed it out back to the sphere that we know it to be right now. But the water spilled in some of this chasm, and then that exposed some of the land. So the surface that we now know as our continents. So and for a long time, of course, still till now, scientists, feel like this is just a story, a creation story. But I think it's interesting that we have this planetary body that is making a humongous revolution around the sun, and it is going to come close to the Earth. Now, what I will say is that this Swan R2, they say, is making slight adjustments in its path. So it's not on quite a completely predictable path. They've noticed that it's been making slight corrections to its direction, left or right, and it appears to have some type of thruster potential to be able to move it side to side, which is lending towards it possibly being a spacecraft. But I just wanted to make the connection, whether it's a spacecraft or it's just an interstellar planetary body that's coming on this humongously long revolution around the sun. I would say that is interesting and could provide more credibility to the Sumerian story about the creation of Earth through Nibiru. Marduk is the satellite of Nibiru that hit and struck Tiamat, which would be Earth as we know it. But while I was just looking at this, I just wanted to share some stuff with y'all, man. We gonna get deeper into this subject. This is something that I've been wanting to touch on, but of course I know they gonna bury this video just from some of the things that I'm mentioning. But one thing I wanted to point out is this: the Sumerians call themselves the black-headed people, and their land and cuneiform script was simply the land, or the land of the black-headed people. In the biblical book of Genesis, Sumer is known as Shinar. So that's interesting. There we go with the black-headed people. People, I'm sure, that don't believe that black people was the first people is gonna say these was black-haired people, but they said head. So head is not just the hair. It'll be, your entire head. So that's interesting in itself. You all know that I'm one that kind of believes that Earth might well, civilization as we know it may not have started in the Middle East, or what we think is the Middle East, because the Akkadians was the Babylonians. The name came from the Akkadian language. The Mesopotamia, that word came from the Akkadian language. And there are lots of places, or there are some places here in America that are known as Mesopotamia as well. And Acadia is actually a national park up in Maine. And there is the Acadian area of Maine / Canada. So there's a lot of evidence to say that this could have been the land where human civilization first occurred. But what's interesting about this Swan R2 comet also is that the last time that it came close to the Earth was around the Ice Age, what they believe, to be the Ice Age. And then after it came, we had monuments on the Earth that were built, such as Göbekli Tepe and others, where you can see evidence that humans were tracking celestial bodies. So I think that's interesting in the timing that this celestial body last crossed our path, But I'll leave these pages up so y'all can pause them and read them if you want to. If you're interested in reading more about what I'm speaking on, which would be the Elohim, that book from ancient Mesopotamia and what some of it says, and then the formation of the earth, and the evidence that can show that this was quite possible, because the earth's crust and underneath the oceans, there is a vast chasm underneath the oceans. And some of the earth's crust seems to be pushed in towards the center of our planet. That's what scientists have actually found. Most of the other planets that they tested, the moon and Mars, have much thicker crust present around the whole outside of their planet. But our crust tends to be thinner. But then they found large amounts of crust that are deep beneath the earth, which could be due to what I said, which was the crashing and the knocking of one moon into this planet could have, dented and chasmed the earth. So there is some evidence to show that that theory is quite plausible, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that there's a lot of things going into the news cycle that's keeping them from really talking about these celestial bodies and this movement of these so-called comets, when they really could be covering it full time. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime. If this thing only comes around 22,544 years, why aren't we paying more attention to it? And then, the possibility that it might not be a planet and it could be another spaceship, that's a whole nother story. But either way, I would be much more interested in hearing about that than the repetitiveness of the things that are in the news cycle. But I'll play a video for y'all, man, so y'all can, catch up on it. I know I didn't give the clearest explanation of what's going on, so play a little bit of this video where you can get a little bit more scientific description of it. And man, as always, man, it's peace and love and light, wisdom and insight. DOA, putting shit together. To the next episode, y'all. Peace.
100 times bigger and brighter than 3i Atlas has been discovered, and surprisingly, it is also headed toward the sun. Astronomers first spotted it on September 12, 2025, using the solar wind anisotropes, or SWAN instrument aboard the SOHO spacecraft. 2 days later, Australian comet expert Michael Mattiazzo captured a jaw-dropping image. Its tail is 2.5 degrees long, about 5 full moons wide, completely dwarfing the tiny tail of 3I Atlas. The International Astronomical Union has officially named it C2025 R2 SWAN after its initial designation, SWAN 25b. The announcement landed like a thunderclap because 3I Atlas, now the arrival of SWAN R2, even larger and stranger, has astronomers asking hard questions. So what exactly is going on in our solar system all at once? Is this a second probe, a relay, or something else entirely? At first, Avi Loeb and his team speculated it might have come from 3I Atlas itself, perhaps a fragment torn from a larger icy body, or even a scout craft released by a technological mothership lurking far out in space. But senior collaborator Peter Veris confirmed the truth is worse. They come from entirely different directions. SWAN streaks in from Aquarius, 3I Atlas emerge from Sagittarius near the Milky Way's core, yet somehow they are converging on the Sun at almost the same time. Yet the timing is impossible to ignore. Both will swing close to the Sun in October 2025, almost side by side on a cosmic scale. At perihelion, SWAN will be about 150 million kilometers from the Sun, while 3I Atlas passes at 203 million kilometers, a gap of only 50 million kilometers and shrinking as their velocities change. Even more ominous, they will both vanish behind the Sun at once, hidden from every telescope on Earth, 2 interstellar visitors, overlapping orbits, 1 solar encounter, and no way to see what happens next. Now, if you compare 3I Atlas with SWAN R2, it feels like a warship next to a drone. Spectroscopic scans of 3I Atlas already stunned scientists. A solid nickel body with no iron at all, a metal blend found only in advanced industry, not nature. Inside, instruments measured a 10 gigawatt nuclear core, and its tail behaved like engine thrust, not melting ice, emitting tightly collimated carbon dioxide at a steady speed, a pattern no natural comet produces. As 3I Atlas neared the Sun, its exhaust snapped from red to green at the exact moment its path changed, which Avi Loeb calls thrust mix modulation, the craft adjusting its burn as heating increased, with the color shift as visible proof. 3I Atlas was terrifying enough, but the real shock came with R2 SWAN. Loeb's team detected a silver plasma shield wrapped around a nickel cobalt armored hull that completely dwarfs 3I Atlas. This isn't passive shielding, it's a living electromagnetic barrier with energy levels off the charts, able to bend the solar wind and deflect radiation far beyond anything a solid shell could do. Its tail spans 2 full degrees of sky, about 5 full moons wide, roughly 100 times bigger than the thin plume trailing 3I Atlas. As it neared perihelion, SWAN's glow flared brighter and shifted to a white-green, exactly as Loeb's sensor picked up tiny thrust pulses, confirming a tiny precision plasma drive steering system. Its exhaust is a dense nickel and cobalt iron plasma mixed with carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, a signature Avi Loeb calls impossible without a directed plasma engine. Then came the most terrifying finding, the core. 3I Atlas has already shocked the world with its 10 gigawatt nuclear reactor, about 50 times the output of Chernobyl. But SWAN's plasma core outputs more than 10,000 gigawatts every second.
Is this the healthiest coffee order in the world?
The reason butter is called...
A power level Avi Loeb compares to 2 black holes colliding, scaled and contained inside a single machine. In Loeb's words, 3i Atlas was only the scout. Swan R2 is the Fortress, a nickel Colbert plasma vessel with a power core beyond comprehension.